All right, thank you. Terima kasih. All right, let me share my screen over here. Okay, cool. All right, so good morning, everyone. Selamat pagi. As mentioned before, my name is Cynthia and I'm based in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And today I will be taking you through how to use Turnitin Feedback Studio specifically as an instructor. Today's meeting is booked for, I believe, 2 hours. So in this session, what we will cover is the basics of Turnitin, what features are available, how to use the system, and basically it's also going to be a forum for any questions you might have regarding the new interface or about any of your experience using Turnitin so far. So, jadi kita mula. First, I'll start off by highlighting that we do have many different resources for you to understand Turnitin better. The first one I'm going to highlight to you is this resource page over here. So if you're looking for things such as lesson plans, global insight, or expert resources, I highly recommend that you actually go to this link over here. So that way you'll be able to get access to all that material. I am going to copy the link and I'm going to put the slides in the chat so that way you can reference it. I see a question asking if you are going to get the slides after, so I can certainly attach the slides also in case you are worried you might miss out anything. So I'll attach that to and send it to Ms. No Fareha so that way she can also forward it to the attendees present today. All right. Some tips for today's training session. Today's session is being recorded by your university. I will be sending a follow-up email to Ms. Fariha after this with the links and the slides as well. So if you need it, she can probably forward it on to you. If you have any other questions, feel free to ask it to me in the chat. Maybe towards the end, after all the presentation and demo, if you want to ask it to me straight, maybe you can come off mute. Otherwise, I will be checking the chat quite often. So anytime there's a question, I might stop and take the question. If you have a question after this session, selepas sesi ini, you are welcome to email myself or my team at seasia-onboarding@turnitin.com. So when you message or when you email this email, you'll be reaching my wider team. So you might most definitely get a response in that case. Okay, so when we start, let's first think about how we would usually mark our students' work. So usually it's like having a stack of student papers that we have to get through in a really short time. As we go through this process of marking and assessing our students' work, maybe we will start to ask ourselves two questions. So for example, we might start to wonder, actually, are my students submitting their own original work? And how can I make sure that I'm leaving feedback very quickly for all my students? So trying to answer these two questions by yourself without a tool like Turnitin can be pretty challenging, as you know. Trying to determine if your students are submitting their own original work may require a lot of copying and pasting. You might have to check, is this quote correct from this source? So you might not really know, right? Or it might take you a lot of effort. But also leaving feedback for many students in a short time, as you know, can also be pretty challenging. So let's see how Turnitin can first help you by answering the first question. So with your Turnitin subscription, you have access to similarity detection and document flags. So similarity detection, biasanya, if you think about Turnitin, it is most likely this feature that you're thinking about, where we help you discover text similarity to help identify potential plagiarism. We also offer you a feature called document flags that will help you uncover any intentional text manipulation used to disrupt similarity detection that we have over here. So if you are not familiar with these two features, I will be discussing them today along with an additional AI component. So setakat ni, your subscription doesn't include the AI writing detection, but I will also run you through the report, at least you know about it. And then if you're interested, then maybe you can also reach out to your admin to request for it to be added on. Okay, so let's go ahead And right, so you might notice also since last month, the interface might look a little bit different. Something has changed. So right now you can access all those features, including the grading and feedback tools in the middle of the page over here. We will look at this as we go through today's session, but that is where you can navigate and find those sources. Okay, jadi kita mula, so we start off by trying to memahami Turnitin punya similarity report. And for us to do that, we need to actually understand what the similarity score is. So the similarity score, which is the percentage that you get on the report, what it is basically a percentage that indicates the amount of text within the student's submission that is matching to other information sources. So notice how the text that we're calling it is called similarity score, and it is not called the plagiarism score. So the score that you receive does not indicate the number or percentage of paper being plagiarized. A lot of people misunderstand. They think that this is the plagiarism score, but it's really not. It is the text similarity score that tells you how much of your student's paper is matching to other sources. So these other sources include past student papers. So these are student papers from around the world. This is not just for IIUM punya pelajar, but this is from any students who have used Turnitin from across the world. We will also check it against internet content or pages, and also published works, which is a collection of journals and articles. So when your student's paper or when you submit your student's paper and turn it in, we will scan the document, check for similarity. Jadi kita buat perbandingan dengan pelajar punya submission dengan database kita, and then we will highlight any time we find any similarity matches. So again, not the plagiarism detection, not plagiarism score, it is the similarity score. All right, so as we try to understand the similarity score better, I would recommend that whenever you review your student's report, that you consider your student's genre. So does this assignment that you're getting your students to complete, does it require students to use the words and ideas of other authors or not? So let's start by first maybe considering a task like this. So maybe we ask our students, okay, can you write a personal reflection about an excursion to a cultural site? Maybe Batu Caves ke or KL Tower ke or whatever. So when you ask your students to write this, where on the scale from 0 to 100 do you think you would get for the similarity score? Is it on the lower scale, the middle, or on a higher scale? Feel free to share your thoughts in the chat. Lower? Okay. Lower scale, lower. 89%, that's very specific, sir. I expect lower since it's personal reflection, 5%. Okay. So in this case, I would also agree with majority of you that it would be on the lower side. And some of you have already mentioned it is because it's a personal reflection piece. So if we think about the task and what the content is going to be, this content is talking about a personal reflection kan. So what I would expect is the students to use more of their own experiences in their writing. So mungkin it's something like, today I experienced this, I learned about this, I saw this. So I don't really expect my students' work in this case to have a lot of other people's work because it's all going to be very unique in terms of the students' writing. So therefore, I would expect it to have a lower similarity. Then we think about, on the other hand, what about a laboratory report presenting the insights of an experiment? For this one, where do you think it will fall under? Moderate, okay? 20%, 30%, mid to high, middle, 20, moderate. Okay, so for this one, a lot of you are pretty spot on in the terms of it is going to be on a moderate scale. So what I would expect is more towards the low to the high range. Okay, so the moderate scales most of you mentioned. And the reason why I would say this is because with laboratory reports, as you know, they are pretty, I would say, standard because the students are maybe describing the step-by-step process and the output of the experiment. Jadi, if the experiment has been conducted many times before, you can also expect that the results are going to be the same. So the report is going to sound very similar to each other's. Some of you have mentioned some on the higher scale, and that's also acceptable depending on the experiment, right? So if the experiment is a very common experiment that has been done many times, I can also expect it to be quite high because of the content of the report. So this is where we can start to gauge the similarity score that we might get based on the content of the student's work. There was another institute that kind of argued the other way, where they said that actually I would expect it to be a lower score because what they do in their university is that they run completely brand new experiments. So that is also acceptable. So what you have to do as the instructor is to consider the assessment that you're using or the paper that you're assessing and just consider, is this common? Do I expect a lot of similarity? Do I expect my students to use other people's work? So that's how you would first gauge the score. So once you know the expected similarity score range of your students, just make sure that all the highlighted text is properly cited and quoted, and the ideas being used are also cited. Because if they are not cited, then that is what we will be considering as plagiarism. Because as you know, plagiarism is when someone else's takes someone else's work and then tries to make it their own, right? Try to make it seem like it's their own original work. So without any citations, without any quotations, it means that they are basically doing that. They are not acknowledging that they are using someone else's work in their writing. So that's what we're going to be looking for as we analyze the report. It is by seeing whether or not the highlighted text has been properly cited and quoted. So here we have 4 different examples of student similarity matches. We're going to be focused on the highlighted text because that is what Turnitin is telling us is a similarity match. So let's start from the first example over here. In this first highlight, I can see that the student has included quotation marks, and the student has also included a inline citation. So for this case, the student has properly cited and quoted this material. So even though this is highlighted, even though there is a similarity score, I am not concerned because the student has properly referenced this. So this is not plagiarism. As we go through more examples of student writing, we may come across examples where maybe students forget to include the citation ke, ataupun they also forget to include the quotation marks. When you come across examples like these, this is then what we refer to as inadvertent or unintentional plagiarism. As you can see, the student did try to do the right thing, but it looks like they forgot one of the other items. So while this is not completely plagiarism, I would still be concerned about this because if they ever forget, then they would basically be considered as plagiarized work. So this is where I would take the opportunity to guide my students and maybe remind them that you need to complete your referencing by including these items. Sometimes students do this because maybe they just don't know. Maybe this is their first time writing a paper like this, so they don't know how to reference. Or maybe they just have poor proofreading skills. Maybe in their final check before submission, they didn't see that they forgot one of these items. So either way, I'm going to take this and remind them, and hopefully by the next time they submit, they won't make the same mistake. Lastly, over here in this example, I can see that this student did not make any attempt of citing or quoting this material at all. So to me, it seems like the student has just copied this from somewhere, tampal dalam kertas mereka, and make it seem like it's completely theirs. So that is definitely not okay. So I would definitely consider this as plagiarism. I might talk to my students about it, or I might also consult my university punya policy to see what I should do next. So as you can see from this slide, it all has to do about referencing to ensure that plagiarism has not occurred. So another, just honing it in, like again, the similarity matches do not detect plagiarism. So you can see here that even though it's highlighted, it does not definitely consider as plagiarism. All right, so now let's move on and talk about the second question. How can Turnitin help you leave meaningful feedback very quickly? For this one, we offer you a feature called Turnitin's Quick Marks, which is Turnitin's comment bank. So basically what you can do is you can save comments within the system so that whenever the student makes the same mistake, you can easily apply that comment and reuse it as many times as you like. This allows you to give consistent and personalized feedback and provide clear, actionable guidance for your students. I will show you how to use this when we go into the live demo, and I will also just maybe like share with you why this is one of my favorite features because it saves you a lot of time. So I'm just going to leave that for now, but this is something we can definitely explore as we go along. We also offer you a a rubrics, which is a marking rubric or a scoring scoring criteria. And with the Turnitin's rubrics, that helps you harness the powerful rubric creation so that way you can process your students' mark the way that you want to. You're also able to link comments and quick marks to rubrics so that way your students can understand, okay, this comment is related to this criteria. I understand why I have deducted points from here is because I didn't meet this, I didn't score well enough, for example. So again, we'll look at this when we go into the demo paper, but this is the potential that you can apply as you start using Turnitin's grading and feedback tools more. You can also easily share rubrics with colleagues at an institutional level. So meaning that if a group of you, a group of faculty or instructors are marking the same paper, maybe you guys can get together, decide on the rubrics, so that way all of you are assessing your students' work based on a certain set of criteria. So you can certainly share this out as well on the university level. All right, so in summary, Turnitin detects text similarity. Students' work is compared to our content repositories. So you need to make the final decision as to whether plagiarism has occurred or not. Similarity scores will change depending on the task. As we have seen, expected similarity scores will vary depending on the task you're asking your students to complete. And always set expectations about AI and the use of quoted materials. So it's always good to manage your students' expectation beforehand so they know what they can or cannot do. And finally, just remember to consider all the data points as you review the reports. If you ever suspect academic misconduct, just consider all the available points to you, which would be the similarity report, the student's language and writing style, as well as your university punya academic integrity policy. So that being said, we're going to put it into practice, but before that, I'm just going to look and check for questions. When we have the quotation marks, it is quoting verbatim, but there are times when we are paraphrasing and we still cite. Yes, so correct. So sometimes when you paraphrase, you don't have the quotation marks kan, but that's not a direct quote. We'll look at an example later on as well, but yes, so sometimes you can also do that as well. How to detect AI-generated text using Turnitin. So for that one, we have a separate feature for that. But for now, IIUM memang doesn't have it as part of your subscription. So as we go along in today's session, I will show you what it is and how you can use it. So later on, if you're interested, kalau minat, bolehlah minta Turnitin admin to maybe request for access to that feature. Okay? Is Turnitin effective to detect Arabic text? So how Turnitin works is that we will match the original language to all the content repositories in our database. So if your students are submitting in Arabic, that means we will check all Arabic content in our Turnitin database as well. Later, I will show you another feature called translated matching, and that one might be more relevant to you too. So I will introduce that feature for you as well. Okay, so I think that's all the questions we have for now. So
Yeah.
let's,
One
yeah.
question. Is it possible to use Turnitin in qualitative research to interview data recorded?
Let me just see.
The early conversation.
Okay, ja. I think I saw your question. Hang on, let me find it. Possible to use this in qualitative research to interview data record. I think at this moment it's more for similarity matching for academic writing, so not so much of the interview data recorder at this stage. So this is more towards the academic paper, long writing papers of the students. But what I'll do is maybe I will just take a screenshot and I'll just confirm if there is a proper response to that, if that's okay, Mom. Okay, let me just do that here. Okay. But I'll let you know if there is an alternative or if there is if Turnitin is memang suited for that. But for as far as I know, it is more suited for the analysis of academic writing, which is essay papers and reports. In case it gives 45% of similarity, it does not mean plagiarism if the student use quotes and citation. Yeah. So the 45% does not necessarily mean that 45 has been plagiarized. You still need to review the similarity matches and decide if that's the case. So we'll look at some examples as we go along, and then hopefully then you'll be able to understand it better as we do. Translated text is part of IIUM subscription as well. Yes, so translated matching is part of IIUM punya subscription. Will you show us the steps to give code for students to join our created class in Turnitin? Yes, so that's what we're going to do now. As we go and put it into practice, I will now show you the live environment and we'll now start by learning how to get our account set up. Okay? Are the colors used in your example similar to what is used in Turnitin? For example, red meaning no citation and similar to others' work. Yes, yes it is. So for that feature, I'm actually really excited to show you. You may notice that the new report is different, right? So it's going to be a lot easier for you to interpret, I believe. So I'm really excited to show you how to do that. Okay, so a lot of your questions are kind of jumping ahead. We will definitely cover them as we go along. So let's go ahead and just get started first. I'm going to move out. I'm going to go to my web browser, okay? So let's start from the very beginning. Jadi kita mula, if I am brand new, if I have never used Turnitin before, just know that I cannot create the account myself. I have to be invited by my Turnitin administrator to use the system. So if you want access to Turnitin or if you don't know what your access is, I recommend that you go reach out to your Turnitin administrator. But for you to get started, once you got your access, you just need to go to turnitin.com on the web browser. We're going to go over to the right-hand side and click on Log In. And we are going to enter our details. So here I am using this one. All right. If you have forgotten your password or if you're not able to log in, I recommend two things. One, just ensure that you have the correct email. And two, kalau you forgot your password already, you can actually reset your password by clicking here and selecting for reset your password. Okay, so if you are experiencing access issues, my first recommendation is for you to reset your password and follow the prompts. And once you do, you should be able to get access once more. But if you're still having issues, then you might need to talk to your Turnitin administrator and they will have to check if you have been locked out of your account or not. For those of you on this call, I will also say if you have a Turnitin account, just make sure that you are logging in quite often or every now and then, because if there is 6 months of inactivity, if you haven't used it in 6 months, you haven't logged in, you may be automatically locked out from the system. So if you want to keep your account active on Turnitin side, I recommend just once in a while logging in if you're not using it. All right, so here is where I'm going to log in. Yeah, IIUM Turnitin administrator, I believe is Ms. No Fariha, so you can contact her directly. Okay, so once we log in as an instructor, let me actually zoom in so you can have a better look. This is what it might look like. At the top, we've got the name of our university. So here is going to be IIUM. And if you are brand new, you would have no other classes. So what I'm going to do now for the next 5 to 15 minutes is to tell or guide you how to get started. And for you to get started, for you to start uploading papers or for you to start receiving papers, there are 3 things that you need to do. You need to, 1, add class, 2, add students, and 3, add the assignment so students know where to submit those documents. So let's start by adding a class. We are going over to the right-hand side and we are clicking on the button that says Add Class. Under here, we've got the class settings. We have 2 types of classes, standard class and master class. For today's training, we are focused on the standard class because that is the most common and most easiest setup. The only difference between the two is whether or not kita guna teaching assistants or TAs. This has nothing to do with what level you're teaching. It doesn't mean like, oh, undergrad studies use standard and then master class use masters. That's not the case. The only difference is sama ada kita guna or kita ada teaching assistants or not. Okay? So if you don't have teaching assistants, then you would just select standard class. Then we enter the class name. The class name can be whatever we want. I usually recommend that you be very specific so you know exactly which student should be in which class. So let's say, for example, I am teaching biology. I'm just going to say biology 1, semester 3, 2025. And if I want to be extra specific, I might even say Thursday morning class. Okay, then we have enrollment key. So the enrollment key that we have over here is something that it can be any alphanumeric code, but basically we would use this enrollment key to give out to our students for them to self-enroll in the class. So usually I don't recommend self-enrollment of students, and I will explain to you shortly why. But for now, this is still a compulsory field. So let me just type something here. Then we have subject area and student level. We can select whatever option that is best suited to this course. But if you cannot find an exact match, don't stress too much about it because this has no significant impact on your class. Then we have class start date, which is today's date, and the class end date, which is default to 1 year from today. Now, this is actually really important. So I want you to make note of this, that whenever you create a class, I highly recommend you to click on the calendar icon and change the date to fit the period that you're teaching in. Jadi contohnya, if I'm only teaching this subject until the end of 3rd semester this year, and let's say my 3rd semester ends in November, I need to change the date to the end of November. Why is this super important? It's super important because this helps IIUM manage the number of active students. So the way that the Turnitin license works is based on the number of active student email addresses. So any students enrolled in an active class will be considered as utilizing a license. So it's always important that you change the class end date here to fit the period that you're teaching in, because once this date is passed, it means that the student is no longer actively submitting in this class. It means that they are no longer considered active license user unless they are still in other classes as active students. All right. So just remember to always change this class end date to fit the period that you're teaching in. If you're not sure when that date is, just know that you can always come back and also change it if you need to. So for now, I'm going to click submit. And it should take me to the next page. So this is where it's going to give me 2 pieces of information. This is the class ID that Turnitin is generating. And this is the enrollment key yang tadi I dah type. So what this information is meant to be used for, it is for you to give out to your students if you are getting them to enroll themselves into your class. Now, I said before that I don't really recommend this because of a few reasons. One of the reasons is because it means that anyone who has information over here, these 2 information, can basically enroll themselves into your class without your permission. So for example, for the Thursday class, let's say for example, the Thursday class, I can only take in 30 students. If those 30 students decide to share this information with their friends because maybe they want to match up their schedule, you can imagine that next time I log in, there's going to be more than 30 students in the class. So that might create more work for me. I might have to go through and filter out who should actually be in that class. At the same time, also, if you're getting students to self-enroll, sometimes they can come up with the excuse saying, oh, I didn't submit, I didn't upload my paper because I don't have the right information, so I couldn't get myself in your class, for example. So that gives them more excuses if they ever need to. So what I would recommend instead is that you add the students yourself so you know exactly who should be there and that you are confident that they should receive notification they've been added. So what I'm going to do is I am going to continue and I'm going to show you next how to add students. So here, what you're going to need to do is first go into the class you just created. So I just created this class. I'm going to click into it. And then at the top, there is the Students tab. So this is where I'm going to click on the Students tab at the top. And this is where I can start adding students. So there are 2 ways we can add students. The first is to upload a student list. So if I click on Upload Student List on the right, it's now taking me to the page where I can now upload a list directly. So if I click on More Info, this tells me what I need to do. So I just need to prepare an Excel file with 3 columns. The first is going to be the student's first name. Secondly, student's last name, and finally, their email address. So what I am going to do really quickly is just to show you what that might look like. And you might think it's a lot of work to do, but it's not really. So it looks something like this. So I just need 3 columns: first name, surname, email address. That's it. Once I'm done, I can go into the system. I can browse for the file. Let me find the file. And upload it, and it would upload all of that students directly. Can it be full name and email only without first and last names? Usually we recommend you do split it out because it makes it easier for organization. And I do think it is still a compulsory field, so you still need to enter the surname as well, or the last name. All right, so once you have uploaded the file, you can see it's now saying whether or not it's passed the check. If it has, just click yes, submit. And if I go back to my student list, it will now look something like this. From your student's perspective, let me show you what just happened to my account. Okay. So from the student's perspective, this is what they would receive. They would receive an email saying, welcome to Turnitin. This is the student's name. And they have been informed that they have been enrolled in the class Biology 101 by the instructor, which is Cindy. So for the student side, if they already have an account, they can just log in and then they can activate their account and they have basically been enrolled into the class. Okay, so that's how from the student side, what will happen. Now, You may notice that over on the right-hand side, there are a bunch of pink color highlights. So the pink color highlights over here will represent or will tell you that this student has never logged in to Turnitin before. So they didn't follow the login now button. They just got the email, but maybe they ignored it. So they didn't access the system. So whenever you see the pink color highlight here, maybe you need to reach out to the student and ask them, I see you haven't logged in yet. What's happening? Do you have any problems? Then they could say something like, oh, I didn't get the email, or the link has expired, or something like that. So if that happens, then what you can do is click on the pink color highlight over here and check for whether the email is correct. And if it is, then you just click submit, and that will send them a new email. So that is how you can activate your students' accounts. Okay. I've got a question here. If I want to check for my own paper, should I also create a class? Yes. So all these steps I'm showing you right now, you have to follow, regardless of whether it's for your own paper or for someone else's paper. You need a place for the paper to go to. That's why you still need a class and an assignment for the paper to go under. For IIUM students, do they have Turnitin accounts? So we can try add them in list. That one you might have to check with your admin, but biasanya, once you have added them into the system, then they would have a Turnitin account already. And you will have to write it in the institutional email, I believe. So that's all you have. So that's what you can do. Oh, sorry. There's a lot of movement in the chat. Let me see if I can scroll up in case I missed anything. If I want to check for my own paper, should I also create a class? Yep, I think I've already mentioned that. You still need to do that. There's a note from Ms. Nofariha to ensure that the email addresses used by your students are either IIUM Live email account or IIUM Gmail for students. All right. So it's also very important that you use IIUM punya email. Kenapa? Because like I said, it's based on the number of active student email addresses. So it's good practice to add your university's email. Because if you add more than one email, like for example, the student's personal Gmail, that means that the student is basically taking up 2 licenses for just one person. So always add your institutional email as into the system. All right, already mentioned the students and the Turnitin accounts. Is there a maximum number of classes that we can create? No. So no maximum number of classes. The only limit is the number of student email addresses from Turnitin side anyway. You might want to check with maybe your admin if there is a limit for the faculty on how many classes you create. But from Turnitin side, there is no restriction for that. The only restriction that we have is the number of active students. Okay. The academic office may consider preparing the attendance together with information of name, ID, and email address next time, I suppose, so that we can try to check for Turnitin similarity. Okay. So I think that one's more towards internally. So hopefully that helps. Does IIUM Turnitin have AI report? At the moment, no, you don't. It's not part of your subscription, but still, I will show you what it looks like. So if you're interested, maybe you can ask for more information. Which color indicates that the student has enrolled in? So if the student has already been logged in, they will not have a color. So let me go to a different class and show you. So here, for example, I will go to the other class and I will go to the student list again. Oh, so it looks like I haven't had anything here. Let me go to a different one. I think I have one. Maybe this one. Yeah, okay. So you can see here, if there is no highlight, maksudnya that pelajar has already activated their account and they have already logged in. So you can see the difference here. Without highlight means they have done everything. The ones in pink, maybe you need to reach out to them and ask them why they haven't logged in yet. I just tried to upload the Excel file containing this. Contains 1 new student. This exceeds the account's remaining student licenses of 3241. All right, so for that error message, Mr. Shahir, maybe that one we might need to consult with your Turnitin administrator. It seems that there is a restriction on the number of student licenses, so perhaps we need to review how many active students are currently available in your account. So that's why it's also very important that you manage this to avoid this kind of issue. So if you already have classes built, if those of you that are already actively using Turnitin, my recommendation for you after this is to go check your account, see if there are any classes that should not be active anymore, and then go back and expire them. So I'll show you how you can expire old classes, especially if you didn't know about it before. If we go back home, and we see that we've got all these classes, all we need to do is just go over to the edit column over here with the gear icon. It will come up with the same information again, including the class end date. So if I already noticed that, oh, this class should not be active, this was actually 2 years ago, I can click on this and adjust it and backdate it. So it's now maybe past the date. Okay. So this is how you can go ahead and change that. When I log in, there is no add class option. Okay, so for those of you without the add class option, maksudnya that maybe your account has been locked out. So if you're experiencing the no class option, I would recommend you to send your registered email to your Turnitin administrator, and she should be able to check whether or not you have access. So she'll be able to go in from the admin side and unlock your account, and then hopefully then you should be able to use it. All of your classes have expired. To view and update your expired classes, select the expired classes tab. You can update and change class end date by clicking the class edit icon. What to do? So for you, Muhammad Yusuf, if all your classes have expired, then you can either go back and reactivate them if you need to, or you can just start new classes. Where is that message coming from? Is it when you add new class? So you should be able to add a new class here, but any expired classes can be found in the expired tab over here. All right. So right now I don't have any expired classes because I do regularly extend my courses for demo. But if you do have any expired classes, they should appear here and you can again go back in and adjust the date if you need to. But biasanya, if it's a completely new class, you can just start a new class from scratch. Okay, we've got more comments on no add class option. So again, go ask or send your email address to your Turnitin administrator and they should be able to check your access. I have tried to expire my class date, then error message appears. The class end date must be in the future. Okay. Is that for, let me see. So for the future, is that based on the date here? So for example, if the date is today, then memang I cannot expire since it's the past. But if it's, let's say, 13 July, then from now I can go back 13 July, if that makes sense. So it also depends on the class date that we have over here. So this date must be in the past of today that we have. So maybe look at the class start date and the class end date and adjust accordingly. May I ask if we can use Turnitin for personal purposes, such as checking our journal manuscript? If yes, would you kindly guide us on how to do so? All right, so I can guide you on that. But for personal purposes, maybe you might want to refer to IIUM punya policy also. So I'm not sure how IIUM is going to allow you how to use the subscription. So maybe you can check for that too. But for those of you that are indeed checking like your own research journals and stuff, I can definitely show you the steps to take. All right, so Ms. Nofariha has mentioned that anyone with no add class button can email directly to her email. So just remember to do that too. Can we replace the list of students to the same class? Remove the current one. Can we replace the list? Yeah, you can, but it's more it requires more work to do that. So for example, if I were to go to the student section over here, I would actually need to remove each student one by dropping the students over here and then adding the new batch of students. So there's no like, I guess, straightforward way to do that. You would need to remove everything, the old students, and then add in the new students if you want to do that. But I will also caution you that if you ever decide to drop the student, just know that you are deleting any information about that student from your class. That includes any submissions they have created. That includes any grades or feedback that you have left for the students. So when you want to drop the students, just think about whether or not you're okay losing that information. But usually I do not recommend that you drop them. There is another alternative though, so I'll show you the other one in the other class. This one here. Students. All right. So you can see that once the student has become active, there is a lock icon next to it. So I'm not sure why you want to replace students, but let's say if this student, Cynthia, has already left the class, or she has transferred to another class or transferred to another university, what you can do is just lock the access. And when you lock the access, meaning that the student is now blocked from being able to log in and access your class using this email address. Okay, so that's the difference between the two options here. The delete function or the trash icon means you're removing any information, all of it. The lock function just means you are blocking them from using the system, but you're still keeping all that data. Class start date already in the past. Okay. All right, I'll get back to you, Encik Shahir, about that one. I might have to investigate that one a bit further. Let me just take a screenshot of that so I can remind myself to check that too. If there's any updates to any of the questions I'm taking today, I will put it in the follow-up email too. But if I miss out later on, I will again send the email address so you know where to contact us as well. Okay. So let me see what other questions we can have. Okay, so some of you are reporting getting error of extending the date. Okay, so I'll just confirm again the date extension and expiry for those of you that are having issues. I will confirm if this is a known issue or if something has changed in the back, if that's okay. All right. Could you kindly guide us on how to do poster Turnitin checking? So I'll guide you on how to do any checking from Turnitin as we go along. So for posters, well, as long as it's a soft copy and if it is in a document format, then we can certainly run the checks for that one too. If a group of lecturers share the same class. So at this stage, we do not accommodate group sharing for a lecturer side. So you may have to split it out, or you may have to create a new account, new instructor account with all your shared emails. So that is one alternative way of doing that. But at the moment, that is kind of difficult. There is another way though, if you're talking about group of lecturers, is by using the masterclass method. The masterclass method is more suited to teaching assistants where you can split the class out based on different lecturers. So since we have, I think, a little bit more time today, maybe I'll run through that with you. So if I go back home, maybe this is more suited for you, but if I go and add class, instead of standard class, let's say I select master class now, for example, I'm just going to type in a class here and just select that. So here, let's say we are in one class or one course. If I add a section, that means I'm adding, let's say, the first lecturer. So this is going to be lecturer 1. just going to put something here, and then I'm going to write the email address. So let's say it's my email address. What's my email address? Okay. Sorry, I completely forgot. Okay. So here I have not added in myself as an instructor. So let me try something else. TFSO. I don't think I actually have this, but let me see if this works. Okay. So then now we can say what section, what number. So if all of you are looking after the class, maybe you want to split it out also based on different departments or classes. Maybe this is going to be the Monday class. So it says I've already been reached for the number of instructors. Okay, so let's just say that everything went smoothly, but essentially you would have sub accounts underneath here with additional instructors underneath this one. So that could be another alternative if you are sharing maybe the same course. But in terms of the same class itself, unfortunately, at this stage, we cannot do that from Turnitin directly. Okay, so that could be a workaround for you in that case. If the class is over, would it be okay if we drop all the students or just close the class? I recommend that you just close the class because again, if you drop the students, maksudnya you're losing all that information. So later on, if let's say the semester over already, the student comes and asks you, what did I get for this paper? If you have dropped the student, you may not be able to retrieve that information. You cannot retrieve their past submissions. So my recommendation is just to tutup the class so that way you still get access to that. Class start date is already passed. Yep, maybe need to change the start date to current dates. The start date cannot be changed, unfortunately, because it is built on when you first built the class. So I'll definitely look into all these questions you have about the expiry and extension of the date. So as far as I know, it should not have any problems, but clearly you guys are facing some issues. So I'll go back after this and I'll just check and I'll put it in my response in the email too. Can Turnitin read PDF that is converted from scanned images? No, we can't. So that's not how we can use the system. So for scanned images, it's not compatible with the Turnitin detection reports. But if you're using Turnitin for grading, you can use grading for scanned images. It's just that the similarity detection will not work for that. Okay, so hopefully I've got everyone's questions already. If I didn't, please feel free to bump up your message and type it in again. But hopefully that helped clarify a lot of things. So what I'll do next is we stopped at adding students. So what we've already clarified also is to add students with the IIUM email. Now, to answer those questions about what to do if I need to check my own paper, what I have done here is I have added my own email. But you can see that I've kind of spelled my email incorrectly. So I'll need to go back in and fix it by clicking on the pink color highlights. Turn it in. Okay. So there I am now activated in that sense. Okay. So I have added myself in as a student. And for me to do that, that means now I have a space where I can upload my own paper if I need to check my own research paper. So that's why you are also able to do this. You can also add yourself in as a student. But again, as a reminder, it means you are utilizing a student license. So just be, I guess, conscious about which student emails or which students you're adding into your account. Okay, so once I've already added my students, I've added my class, the next step is to add the assignment. So let me go to a different class. Let me go to English Writing 101. And let me click on the button over here on the right that says Add Assignment. Now, this is where it becomes, I guess, also important for you to know because the settings here look a little bit different from the last time we saw Turnitin. All right, so you can see the interface is a little bit more modern. It's a little bit different. So I'll walk you through each setting, so that way you are aware of what to do. So first, we need to add the title. So for the title, I am simply going to write, let's say, essay final report. Under instructions, you can add whatever instructions required, such as the criteria you're looking for, number of words, the formatting type, things like that. Underneath here, we can upload a template. A template is something that you want to be excluded from the report that all your students will be using. So for example, if you're getting your students to upload a paper with a cover page, a standard assignment cover page, and you are concerned that the cover page might trigger similarity matches because they're all the same, you can just upload a blank cover page into the system, and it means that the template will be ignored when Turnitin runs the check. I'll click on the info icon, so at any time, if I forget what this is, I can just refer to this note. But just remember that once a submission has been made, templates can no longer be added or edited. So my recommendation is that when you begin creating your assignment, just think about how this assignment is going to be submitted. If there is a set of questions that is all the students are answering, maybe you want to upload the blank set of questions here too, so it's ignored. Or like I said, if it's a cover page, you can just upload the cover page directly. Then we have the scheduling dates. The first is start date, which is the earliest date your students can begin submission. Due date is the final date and time of their submission before it closes. And feedback release date is the date that they can start releasing the comments, the grades that you have left in the student's assignment. You can change the calendar icon and adjust it, or you can just type it directly and adjust the date as well, and the time as well. Then we've got grading and feedback. So this is the maximum points you are grading your students. The default is 100. So assuming you're giving them like 100%, for example, then this is where the 100 comes in. You may have this ability to hide details for anonymous grading. If you don't have it, it just means that it's not activated on the admin level. But this feature simply just says that if I enable this, it means that I am hiding my students' names within the system from myself. Because what this does is that it promotes unbiased or objective marking. So as an instructor, I don't know whose paper I'm reading, and perhaps that will influence me to be more impartial. So I'm just going to leave this off for now, but that's what that feature is. We are also able to attach rubrics. So if you mentioned in my slides, the rubrics are the Turnitin's marking criteria or marking guides. So you can attach it directly here, but I will show you later how to attach it somewhere else too. Then we've got submission settings. Here we are able to allow late submissions, allow resubmissions until due date, and allow unsupported file types. For this one, I recommend not selecting the allow unsupported file types. As mentioned before, Turnitin does accept various different file types, including Excel files, audio files, or even video files. But only certain files are compatible with Turnitin's similarity detection report. So if you are using Turnitin because you want the analysis or the detection report, I recommend turning this off. So that way you are limiting your student submission to what is compatible with Turnitin. For the other two, I do recommend that you turn it on, because if you allow late submissions, it just means your students still get to submit. But if they submit it late, they will be able to see the red color highlight telling you that they have been submitted it late. I would also recommend allow resubmissions until due date, because it gives your students the opportunity to always upload if they feel like they have a better chance, or if they have made improvements to their paper, they can upload a brand new attempt into the system. So that is assignment details. We now move on to rubrics. So rubrics are, like I said, the marking criteria or the marking guide. There are 3 columns here, which is my rubrics, my personal rubrics I have created myself. We've got institutional rubrics, so it can be the rubrics shared on the university level, so IIUM punya rubrics. or it can be Turnitin's rubrics. Turnitin's rubrics is basically a set of rubrics that we have created for you, and you can use it if you want to, but you cannot edit it at this point. So this is all default and set for you. So if you want to select one, you just simply navigate to the one you want and select it. However, if you want to start creating your own rubric, you can click on Create Rubric at the start. Let me zoom out for you here. And you have two options to choose from. Kita boleh pilih whether we want to import from a file or if we want to create a new rubric from scratch within the system. For this one, I tend to recommend that you do it from the file because from the file means that you are able to use a Excel template to work from. So most of us would be more familiar with the Excel layout. So I feel like that's a lot easier to navigate if you want to. So that could be perhaps a better option for you if you want to just upload your rubric straight into the system. If you want to upload or create a rubric yourself, let me see if I can do it from scratch here. This is what it looks like when you try to create from the system. You need to name your rubric. So I'm just going to name it Cynthia Ong, and I'm just going to select a custom rubric set. I can also decide how many criterias I'm assessing my students on. So let's say 4 criterias, and what are the scores I'm going to give them, what the scale scores are. So I'm just going to leave it as 4 by 4, and you will see it will now appear like this. So now I can adjust my rubric whenever I need to. So here, as you can see, it may look a little bit foreign. You might not be familiar with it. So perhaps using the file import will be better for you. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on rubrics because there are more other things I want to show you, but this is all available to you here. So you can start uploading your rubrics in your own language, some other bahasa ke or Arabic also. You can start uploading it all here. All right, then we move on to report settings. So for report settings, just know that any of these settings can be edited after creating your assignment. So don't worry if you forget something or if you change your mind later on. The first setting that I want to show you is the submissions repository. So this is actually a very important setting that you pay attention to because this allows you to decide what to do with the submissions you receive. Do you want to keep a copy of it in Turnitin's database for future similarity checking, or do you not want to keep a copy of it at all? Biasanya, I would recommend that we are going to store it in Turnitin's repository because it's always encouraged that you build up a database of student papers. So that way we know if the student decides to recycle or reuse their paper later on, that you are aware of it. So that way it's going to match with the student's work. But there may be some times where you do not want to store the submitted papers. Maybe if it's confidential, or if you are certain that there's going to be different versions of the paper being uploaded. So for example, under assignment details, we know this is the final report, but let's say this is actually the first draft. If I store the student's first draft in Turnitin's database, next time when they upload their final paper, and their final paper is hasn't changed a lot since their first draft, you can therefore expect that the final paper is going to have a very high similarity score, sebab a lot of it is going to match with the student's first submission. When you come across this is what we refer to as self-matching, where the student's work will match against their previous assignment or their previous submission. This could be the same for those of you who are checking your research paper. Very important, especially from other institutes that I've heard, that if you are checking your research paper that maybe you don't want to store it in because when you submit it into the journal, they might find that you are matching. So then they might not allow you to publish, for example. So just note that this is a very important setting that we have. So pay attention to the assignment. Think about, do I want this paper to be stored? Is something going to happen later on that will require me not to store it? So as you go along, just remember to stop for a while and just think about whether you want to do this or not. But like I said, generally it's a good practice to store it in, especially for student writing, to ensure that they're not going to recycle or to give to someone else for reusing. Okay, so that's what I would recommend. Regardless of which option you choose, just know that we will still run the checks for you like normal. All right, so that's a completely separate thing. We will still do the job. Then we've got compare submissions. So this allows you to decide which repository options you want to compare your students' work with. I recommend all three options to ensure complete similarity checking. We've got report generation settings. So whether or not you want to generate the similarity report at the time of submission or on the due date. So I would usually recommend at the time of submission, especially if you have this option checked, because it means that anytime your student submits a new copy, they will get a new report based on their latest submission. So that's why I recommend as well for this one that you do generate at time of submission. So it means that your students are able to reflect on the report of their latest submission, make any changes, and then submit again. So by the end of the day, their report will be a lot better based on the feedback that they're receiving. There is a limit though, that the students are only able to submit 3 times in one day and get the report straight away. So if you are getting questions later on like, oh, why isn't the report generating? Just know that there is a limit for 3 times a day. Then report access, I recommend that you do allow students to view similarity reports so they know where they can improve on. And then we've got translated matching. So this is where one of the questions was asked before about the language Arabic language. So coming back to how Turnitin works, whatever language the document is being submitted in, we will check it against our database. So contohnya, if the submission is being written in Arabic, we will check Arabic content in our database and still buat perbandingan. At the same time, if you enable translated matching, it means that we will translate the Arabic punya submission into English and then check the translated English content against English content in our database. So with this feature, we kind of do a double check to ensure that students are not simply taking from one language, translating it, and then putting it into their paper. So that is what this feature is. Now, Arabic is definitely supported, but there are other languages that this feature will not work for. Contohnya Bahasa Melayu, at this stage, we are not supporting Bahasa Melayu, okay? If you want more assistance as to what languages are supported, what you can do is navigate to the top right-hand side where it says Help. If I click on Help, it takes us to the Turnitin Guides page. So this is actually a free resource for you that contains all information related to Turnitin. So if you want to find an answer, this is probably the best place for you to do so without talking to anyone or even waiting for a response. So for example, if I want to learn more about translated matching, I'm going to select it here. I'm going to select the first article. And I can select here what languages are currently supported. And these are the languages that are currently supported, Arabic being one of them. So if you're teaching in other languages, I recommend that you check here first to see if it's being supported. Then you can turn on that feature. I will drop the link to this guides page in the chat. So if you want to bookmark it, I recommend that you do so because this is where you can find any answers to your questions. All right, then finally, we have the exclusion setting. So for exclusions, we also have the ability to exclude bibliographic materials, quoted materials, and matches that are smaller than X number of words. For now, I don't recommend that you apply any exclusions, and I will show you why later. But for now, I'm just going to leave it blank. Once I'm done, I'm going to click on Create Assignment. And there we go. We have now created the assignment. So that's what we need to do in order to start receiving student submissions. As we recap, kita kena add class, then add students, and then add assignment. Then students can only start submitting. So if I look into the report that I've just created, you see that this is the student submissions. We've got all the details. At any point, if I want to change any of my settings, I can click on Edit Settings on the right here and change it. And this is the list of students. As you can see, because I just created this has no submissions. But that is how I'm able to do that. Let me go into a different class for now, and so you can see what it looks like. But this is what it will start to look like once you get student submissions into your assignment. I've got my students, the name of their paper, and if they submitted past the due date, it will appear in red like this with the clock icon. If there are any grades, they will be being written here as an overview. This is an overview of the similarity report. This is where the AI writing report comes in. And again, IIUM at this moment doesn't have this feature, so I won't expect you to see this. Then we've got the flags feature. You can see whether or not your students have entered and reviewed their score and reviewed the feedback. And on the most right-hand side, we have a couple of other options. Here we can click to open up the report. We can copy the submission ID, and usually the submission ID is for further investigation, or if I want my admin to do something about it, like delete it, or to give over to support for further investigation. I can submit my file on behalf of the student. I can grant the extension of the student. So let's say Dennis over here has actually emailed me already telling me that they're going to be late. So I can even grant extension for this particular student. Or I can even request for deletion of the paper. So there are a couple of things here I want to expand on. The first is request deletion. So remember how I really highlighted the importance of deciding whether or not you want to store it in the repository? If later on we change our mind and we realize that, okay, I don't want this paper in the Turnitin's database, I can actually call for it to be deleted from the database. And for me to do that, I just need to select request deletion. My request will go to my administrator and it will be hidden from the view. I will need to wait for my administrator to approve it. And once they do, the submission and feedback will be deleted and it will no longer be matched against future submissions. So if you change your mind and you want it to be taken down from the database, this is how you would do so by clicking on request deletion. The other thing I wanted to dive in more is the submit file option. So this is for those of you that want to just do your own checks. How would you do that? You can also just upload on behalf of yourself. So for example, this is my account, Cindy Ong. I'm just going to go over here and I can submit a file for myself. So for those of you who are doing self-checks, that is how you can also submit for yourself. Okay? So that's how you can submit on behalf of students. Okay. So Yasmin asked, if the student can resubmit a few times, will the similarity report of the resubmission increase if we choose to store submissions in database? Or will the final submission be the only one stored in the database? So it is the last one, which is that the final submission will be only stored in the database. So once the due date is over, that is when Turnitin will store all the papers and upload it into the database. So the due date is actually the moment when we start to capture all that information. Can you repeat the last sentence before you answered the question? Yes, so if you want to upload on behalf of yourself, let's say I am going to upload my own paper. I want to check my own research paper. I simply need to go into the account I've created for myself just now. Tadi, I showed you how to add yourself as a student. So here I've just found myself. I'm going to go over to the right-hand side and submit a file on behalf of myself. So this is where I can add in my own file to do my own similarity checking. Can students delete their submission? So not from the data repository, no, they cannot. So it's from the repository itself, the database, they don't have the authority to do that. All right, no problem. Okay. If the student is dropped from a class, will the request deletion option disappear and the submission remain intact? Yes. Yes, it will. So that's why I recommend that the drop student is being used very carefully, because if you drop the student, you are deleting any record of that student, including all of their submissions from your view. So it's still in the database, but you just can't have power. You don't know, you can't control it from the system end. So the only way to remove a paper from the database is by going over here and selecting the request deletion option. If that doesn't work, your next step is to copy submission ID, which is the exact ID of this paper, and then maybe getting our support team to delete it or getting the admin to delete it from that side. So that's why, again, just be careful about deleting students, because if you delete the students, you won't have access to the ID anymore, and there's no point of reference for you. So just keep in mind when you do that, okay? Students sometimes use their own Turnitin account, which I am not sure if they manipulate the settings for certain percentage of plagiarism. What is your advice on this matter? All right, so for students, if they have been added as a student role using Turnitin, they can't actually manipulate their own percentage. But if they've been added in as instructors, then instructors can manipulate that percentage. So I think for this one, I need more understanding of how your students, or what you mean when you say students have their own Turnitin accounts. Is it on the student level or is it on the instructor level? If it's on the student level, no, they cannot manipulate it. But if it's on the instructor level, then perhaps they can. Could I kindly repeat how to include a lecturer in the student's assignment? Do you mean when you want to add yourself as a student? If you want to add yourself as a student, as a lecturer, so here is just where you can just add in your own email address to the student list. I'm not sure if that helps answer that question. Maybe if you can clarify that, but hopefully I've just done that. If we choose not to store, then it will not be used for checks for saved anywhere in the system. Correct. So if you choose do not store in repository, it means that there is no historical record of it to be used for future checks. Meaning if I upload a paper today and I say, nope, don't store it, and then someone else borrows my paper and uses it, it would seem like that person is the first person to write that paper. So that's why I recommend storing it in the repository so there is a history of it. Okay. So we've already gone through all the things that we need to do to set up. Now let's start diving into the reports itself. So here I'm going to go into a class with some student submissions already. All right. So when we look at this assignment inbox or submission list, my recommendation is for you to always look at the flags column first. If you remember what the flags are, they are signs that some form of text manipulation has taken place. So here I can also reorganize it so that the most number of flags appear at the top. So it looks like this paper is the first paper I need to investigate. So let me click on the icon and it will now launch the similarity report. All right, so this is the similarity report that we have over here. I'll quickly take you around this new interface, but here is where you can see the student's name, the name of the paper, and this is where you can navigate between student submissions here, left and right. This is where you can enter the grades if you're grading your student paper. Over on the right, this is where you can download a copy of the report, any of these reports. And this is where you can look at more information about the student's submission details, including how many times the student has submitted for this assignment. In the info icon, it would just take you to our help page again, so our guide, so you can navigate using the system too. Over in the middle, this is where our tools are going to be now located. As you can see, wherever we are, the right-hand panel will change to correspond the feature that we're currently in. As a reminder, for those of you who have just logged in, at the moment, you will not have access to AI writing because this is not part of IIUM punya subscription. So if you see that your view is a little bit different from mine, it's because you don't have that. All right, I can see some questions coming in. So let me just answer those before I move on here. If we choose to store it, will it appear under my own email for future checks? It will appear, but it will not reveal the content to other people outside of IIUM. So it won't appear under your own email. The information will appear under your own email, but that information will only be revealed within your university. Okay? I'll show you later an example of what happens when you match to someone else in your own uni and what happens when you match to someone else outside of your uni. But just to let you know, if someone else in different universities match to yours, we will not reveal the content of your document. It is your own private and confidential document, so none of the content will be exposed. We will simply say 2% has been matched, and this is the sentence that is matched. If we choose to drop the class, what happens to the documents that we have submitted? Will it be deleted? It will not be deleted. It will still be in Turnitin's database. So if you want to delete the document, you need to go through the steps I've mentioned before, which is requesting it for it to be deleted. How about an assignment done by a group of students? So at the moment, we don't have group assignment settings that can cater to group assignments. So usually for group assignments, we would recommend getting a representative to submit the document. Or if you're getting like, let's say 5 of the group members to submit 5 times, then you would at least know that there's going to be a high similarity between those group of 5 students because they're all uploading the same documents, right? So choose which method you want. Either get 1 representative or get 5 of them to upload the same document. And if it's all the same document, later I will show you how you can apply exclusions or how maybe you can just review them independently as well. What is the percentage of AI writing allowed? So that should actually be a question internally for your own university. It really depends on whether or not IIUM or your own course allows AI usage or not. Okay, so that has to be answered within your own university policy at this stage. How can author names and affiliations be excluded to prevent detection by Turnitin? For that one, I will show you exclusions and how you can apply them as we go to the similarity report. Sometimes the plagiarism detect common general wordings. What should we do at this setting? Okay, great. So those are all questions that we will definitely look into when we go into the similarity report. But for now, let's try to review the flags first. All right. So here I'll quickly run through what the flags are and why you should review that first and foremost. As you can see over on the right, it says that we have 2 integrity flags for review. Suspicious text manipulations have been found. I need to review these flags as a priority. If I look through my student's document, I can't see anything unusual. So I'm not sure why they're saying that something suspicious is happening, but let's have a look. The first flag that we can look at is hidden text. If I click on hidden text, suddenly I've got a bunch of red markings on my student's work. What hidden text is, it is basically when the students will change the text or the color or the font into white. So that way it blends into the white background. So again, if I didn't have Turnitin, I might not be able to know, but actually in reality, there is something else hidden underneath that. So hidden text. The first example over here, as you can see, the student included a bunch of words in between the paragraph spacing, sebab they want to increase their document word count. Maybe as part of the writing assignment, they needed to achieve a minimum word count, but they couldn't do it because of whatever reasons. So they hope that at the end of the day, you are only looking at the word count at the document over here. So that is why they included random words in white. In this next paragraph, you might not be able to see it, but there's actually white color quotation marks over this section. So the student included these white color quotation marks because they know there is such a setting that allows instructor to exclude quoted materials. So if you remember just now when we were creating our assignment settings, the last section was about exclusions. So that's why I recommended that you don't select any of those, because if you check the box that says, yes, let's exclude quoted materials, it means that any text between quotation marks, some other quotation marks too is in black or white, will not be checked for similarity. So that's why I encourage you to be careful when applying the exclusions, because if you do, you might miss out on this sort of thing. In this paragraph over here, you can see that there is a white color symbol in between each word. So this student has actually included this white color symbol because they wanted to make it seem like normal writing, when again, in reality, it is actually something white that is separating each word. The student did this because they hope that when Turnitin scans the document and checks for similarity, that they cannot find any matches for this sentence or this text. They hope that Turnitin will read it instead as just one long continuous string of characters. So that is what is happening in this case, and that is what hidden text is all about. Yep, the student is indeed creative. In fact, they do try to share these tips with each other on TikTok or on social media, but we do have a team that kind of monitors it. So if there's anything new or any sort of tricks that they try to promote, we will check it against our own system. And if it's undetectable, we will improve it from our end. So that is what hidden text is. Next, we also have replaced characters. So when I click on replace characters, tiba-tiba, there's going to be a lot of highlights over a specific character, which is character E. If I go over to the right-hand side and click on learn more, it tells me what the issue is, which is that the student has replaced all the characters we would normally use on our keyboard in Latin over here with a similar looking character in another language. So as you can see, side by side, these two characters actually look alike. That's why from our point of view, we couldn't tell the difference, but in reality, they are different characters from different languages. So the student did this because they hope that a combination of different characters from different languages would not be checked for similarity. That is why they are hoping it in this case. But they are indeed different characters, which means they have different unique codes behind them. And that is why Turnitin can detect it if there is a difference in the codes. So that is what is happening in this case. They might also try it for other characters such as O and A and other such. So anytime we detect that, we will highlight it for you. An example I like to give here is that this is an example of, let's say, for example, sometimes when you receive emails and scammers might send you emails too. Contohnya, recently I received an email from Maxis. Maxis is asking me to update my billing details. And then when I click on the link, it takes me to a web page that memang looks like Maxis punya website. But in reality, it is not Maxis email. It is not Maxis website. The scammer has changed the huruf A, to look like normal A, when in reality, it is a different character leading me to a different website. So it's sort of the same concept, and that's what the student is applying here to make it seem the same word, but in reality, it is not. Okay? So that is what these flags are. And that is why it's really important that you actually check the flags first, because as you can see, this student is not being very honest. It looks like they're trying to hide a couple of things. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this paper. I'm just going to stop. I might have to discuss this with the student, or I might need to consult my university punya policy to figure out what I should do next. But either way, clearly the student is not being very honest, so I'm just going to move on to a different paper instead. Okay. All right, so I'm just going back up to the questions. A lot of people are shocked that students might do this. So hopefully now that you know there is such a feature, you can start looking out if your students are actually doing this. So cool. All right, let me see. Okay. So now we're going to talk about the similarity detection report, and this is where I also start addressing some of your questions around exclusions and how we've got some small matches that might trigger or might be part of the similarity reports. So I'll proceed with my demo, and if there are any leftover questions, just let me know. So I'll start off with looking at the similarity report. So to access the similarity report, kita kena hanya tekan the button over here that says similarity. So over on the right-hand side, it says 59% overall similarity. And again, as a reminder, especially for those of you who have just logged in, this is not the plagiarism score. Turnitin does not detect plagiarism. If plagiarism has occurred, you will need to decide that, and I will show you how you can do that. But just for now, this score is just telling you how much of your students' text is matching to other sources, okay? So underneath here, we have two different views we can look at. We can either look at the match groups view, or we can look at the sources view. I'm going to look at the sources view first, because this is the view that maybe most of you are more familiar with, especially if you have been using Turnitin for a long time. So how you would use this view is by matching the source or the matches or the similarity matches that we have here and link it to the color and the number on the right-hand side. So for example, this highlighted text is telling me that this text is coming from somewhere. For me to know where that is, I just have to look at the color, which is blue, with the number 13 over on the left. So if I go over to the right and scroll and find 13 color number blue, this is what the website is. So this text is coming from this website. So that is how I can use the sources view to identify where the text is coming from. But for today's session, I am going to be focused on the match groups view. Sebab this is the view yang baharu punya, and it's also going to be a lot easier for you, in my opinion, for you to interpret this report. So under the match groups view, what Turnitin will now do for you is that we will now categorize or group the similarity matches into 4 different categories. And yes, this is similar to the color codes that I showed you in my presentation slides. So those highlighted in red will be those that have not been cited or quoted. Those are in orange will be similarity matches that are missing quotation marks. Those in yellow, those are missing citation. And in green are those that have been properly cited and quoted. So this is the really cool thing about the new view, is that now I know for sure that 6% over here of my 59% is something that I don't have to be worried about, because the student has already properly acknowledged that person's work, meaning that this is not plagiarism. So again, this is how you can read the report. This is not the plagiarism score. As you can see, 6% of it has already been properly referenced, so I am not worried about that. What I should focus my energy on is more towards the red color section, because any similarity matches that have not been cited or quoted, those have a higher risk of being plagiarized content. So this is especially useful if I don't have a lot of time. I can simply focus my efforts on the other sections instead. So how do we do this? Let's go through the student's report, and let's go through from the top of the student's report to the bottom. So over here, we have the first highlights, okay? This highlight over here is in red. Now, do you think that you should be worried about this highlight or not?
No.
No? No? Okay.
No.
Second. No. Okay. So yeah, I agree with those of you saying no, we should not be worried about this highlight, because kalau kita baca the text, even though there are no signs of references, it's actually just highlighting the name and location of this place. So I don't expect my students to reference it, so I can just exclude it. So to apply a specific exclusion to this, you can simply click on the text and select exclude this text. So let me show you that again. Just select on the highlight and select exclude this text, and keep doing that until all of it has been accepted. So you can see that my score has dropped a little bit to reflect that, but that is how you can apply exclusions. You can apply to that specific text, so you can manipulate it in that sense to adjust it so it's more acceptable. All right, then we move on to the next one in green. Those in green, if you remember, have been cited and quoted, which is indeed the case. I can see the quotation marks. I can see the inline citation telling me where the original text is from. So this is something I definitely don't have to worry about. This is memang not plagiarism. So again, I can just exclude this text directly. And you can see my score again has dropped. Then we have that in yellow. Yellow is missing citation, and that's what's happening over here. So the student told me that this is not their sentence, tapi they didn't tell me who the original author was. So now I need to remind my students that they need to include citations for future submissions because this is not the correct way to reference. So for me to leave a comment, you simply need to click anywhere on the paper and select the text icon over here. This is where you can now enter your text. And there you go, you have now added in straight into the paper. However, as you can see, if you have a really long text, it becomes quite a problem because now it's overlapping and your students can't read it, you can't read your students' work, so this is now an issue. So what I would recommend instead is for you to use our other two tools, which is the comment bubble and the quick mark icon. So to apply the comment bubble, you simply need to select the area you're leaving the comment on and selecting the middle icon over here. Then here is where we can type our really long feedback. We can even link it to a rubric. So let's say I'm assessing my student based on these three components, right? So I'm going to link it to evidence and commentary. And then that way my students will understand that they have been minus 1 point because they didn't provide appropriate referencing for the evidence, for example. I can even pin it to the top. So if this is a really important feedback that I want my students to pay attention to, I can even pull it to the top so my students would definitely not miss it among all the other comments I'm leaving behind. So once I'm done on that, I can click create and it will now be set in the margins just like that. So that's how you can utilize the comment bubble. Then the other one that you can use is quick marks. So to apply quick marks is the same thing. We're highlighting the area. And this time we are selecting the first icon, which is the quick mark icon. So now it's pulling up the Turnitin's comment bank. So these are all the comments I have already saved in the system. So all I need to do is find the proper comment. Let's say this one here, citation needed. And it's going to populate all of this here for me. So this is why I kind of love this feature a lot more because it saves me time. As an instructor, I know that my students will always make the same mistake over and over again without fail. And I always find myself every semester, every week, leaving the same feedback over and over again. So instead of spending time trying to think about what to write each time, instead of spending time typing it out, I can just save the comments ahead of time into the system. So whenever they make that mistake, I can just tampal the comment in the paper. If I wanted to, I can even add additional comments at the bottom. So instead of the standard comment for everybody, I can even personalize it just for this student. So I can also do that here too. This feature, Quick Marks, is also shareable within your instructors, your faculty. So if all of you are marking the same paper and you know that there's going to be some mistakes or some responses you want to give, you guys as teachers can get together, discuss what comment to leave and save it all and share it within the system. So that way, the comments that all of you are leaving, regardless of who is marking the student's paper, will all be the same. So it's going to give a standardized and consistent feedback. So all your students know exactly what you're all talking about. There won't be any confusion between what one instructor has said and what another instructor has said. So that is the beauty of Quick Marks. Highly recommend that you try to use it if you haven't already, and you can definitely customize it to your own schedule or even to, if you're using Arabic as well, you can also type in Arabic characters in here. All right, so now I've already left my comment from my student. I'm now going to move on to the next highlight, which is the one in orange. Orange is missing quotation marks. So here I can see that there are no quote marks, but there is an inline citation, as what one of you have mentioned. It means that this student has tried to paraphrase. This is especially true if I see the text and there are blank spaces in between the word that has not been highlighted. Maksudnya, all these words that are not highlighted are those that the student has changed. If I want to check the original text, I simply need to click on the icon. And if I move over to the right-hand side, I can see now a snapshot of the original text. So the original text says, from the Southern Ocean gradually erode. And it looks like my student has written, from the Southern Ocean over time eroded. So jadi my student over here has paraphrased gradually erode to over time eroded. So by doing this side-by-side check, I, as the instructor, can now decide if this is going to be good paraphrasing, or if maybe I can help my students improve on their paraphrasing skills a bit more. So this is where I can make that decision. If I think that this is acceptable, if I think that, okay, the student already paraphrased enough, I can also exclude the match directly over on the right-hand side over here. So this is how I'm able to analyze that. Then we have this red color highlight. This red color highlight over here is going to be a classic example of plagiarism. Because as you can see, this entire chunk of text has been highlighted with no signs of referencing. So clearly this student has just copied this paragraph from somewhere, put it into their paper, and tried to make it seem like it's their own writing. So definitely a concern. So I'm going to leave this up here so I can tell or discuss this with my student. So that is how you would go through the similarity report, by going through the matches and identifying if plagiarism has occurred or not. Underneath here, we have the exclusions little tab here. So if I click on the exclusions feature, it just shows me all the sources I have excluded so far. So if I scroll all the way down, I can actually put it back if I change my mind. So if I select this, I can do one by one. Or if I want to put everything back, I'll just select this whole thing. And if I go back to my report, you see that all my highlights are now back to where it was. And my score has also gone back to what it originally was before. If I go under filters, I can also adjust this based on this specific student's submission. So I can decide specifically for Dennis, whether or not I want to compare it against this database or whether or not I want to exclude anything here. So if you remember the first student that that included the white color quotation marks, this is the feature they hope that you had enabled. If you applied this exclusion, it means that any text between quoted marks, whether it's black or white, will be ignored. So just remember that that's going to happen if you do that. While I am over here and still talking about exclusions, I also want to show you, for example, if there is a match for another student paper. So I just want to assure you that if anything is being reviewed, as you can see here, it's matching to another student paper from this college. If I click on it, I cannot see what it is. So if you do match, or if someone else matches with your work as well, vice versa, none of that material is going to be exposed. It will just simply tell you that this text that's highlighted is matching to this paper, but we will not know what it's about or why, okay? So rest assured that if we are matching, we will not show the content. Now, if it's within the institute though, that is a different question. So I might have to go to a different account. I'm trying to think which account it is because I have too many accounts. Let me try and log into a different one. So I'm just going to log into a different account that I have. Ignore this many accounts. As you can see, I have too many. Okay, so I'm trying to see if this is the one I wanted to try. Where did it go? Mm. Okay, just bear with me while I try to pull up an example of a similarity match within the same university. Okay. Okay, I think this is it. Okay, so yeah, okay. So let's say this is my student again, now with 100% similarity. And this is because actually one of my colleagues have uploaded the same paper to their own account. So that's why there is a match. But essentially, as you can see, if it's within the same institute, we are able to see what the content is about. So if a IIUM student submits a paper and it matches to another IIUM student, you can see by right the entirety of the comment or the content over here. So hopefully that answers that previous question that you had before about whether or not you can see if someone else matches. If it's within the same students in the same university, you should be able to see it. Tapi kalau university yang lain, then you cannot see it at all. So you will see that this is from my own account I've uploaded, which I can match. But if it's in a different account from a different university, it is not showing. So that's the difference. Now, another thing that I do like to encourage is that this score is something that you should not be afraid of. Obviously, like when I was a student, I was also scared of it because I thought it was a sign of plagiarism. But in my opinion, as long as you can explain why it's 100%, in this case, it's because my colleagues and myself have stored it in the repository. What I can do next is maybe apply exclusions to that specific source. And by doing that, then I can definitely reduce the scores here too. All right. So that's how I can apply that as well. So that's my opinion, but obviously if you don't feel secure, you can have that option to whether store it in this repository or not. All right. So hopefully that helps. Okay, I'm going to take a bunch of questions. We are almost at time, so I'm not sure if I can show the AI report. If you're okay to stay back a little bit after this, I will dive into a little bit of the AI report too. But for now, I can see some questions, so let me see if I can answer them. Okay. What about excluding references? Any risk there? So for references, usually there is no risk, but there have been another university that has struggled a little bit because they put references in the middle of their paper. So how I can explain this is how it works in the guides. So it depends as well where the references are being listed in your student's paper. So let me just quickly pull up the exclusions guides in the help guides here. And this is the student hub. Sorry, it should be this one. Yeah. Actually, not this one. I think it's this one and this one. So what I would encourage you to do actually is to, this one, is to read this article over here. So how this works is that when you select exclude, for example, bibliography, it means that we are analyzing your student's work and checking it for any of this text. And that's going to be our starting point, meaning after that, we are ignoring everything after, let's say, the word reference list. So if your reference list is in the middle of your document, then be careful because it would mean that the remaining of the document may not be checked for similarity because this is going to be the start point. And if you don't have a terminating point or an end point, then it will just keep going for the rest of the document. So there is a slight risk depending on the format of the student's document, but just rest assured that, as long as you insert the terminating phrase or the end document somewhere, that would stop the exclusion from reading the rest of the report. So hopefully that answers your question, but this was an issue that one of the institutes had encountered, so I thought it would be a good chance for me to highlight this for you. I will just drop this article in the chat if you want to have a read of it, so hopefully that looks hopefully that will explain a bit more about that. If similarity score is not plagiarism score, why all submissions, grants, manuscripts, it can be stressful when we're out by a few percentage. Yes, so that is the policy of whoever you are submitting to at this stage, unfortunately. That's why we are having these training sessions to educate staff, institutions, publishers, that that's not the case. It's a common misconception, but that's really not what we do here. So hopefully this training session has enlightened you and allowed you to understand that this is the feature that we provide and what you can do with it. And as Siti also mentioned, you can reduce the percentage now that you know what to do already. So that's why I always say that you shouldn't really be that scared of the score as long as you know how to work it. If you can explain it, you can exclude it, and that's how you can manage the score that we have. Does your IIUM Turnitin feature detect hidden text? Yes, no, Farhani. So we've already covered that in beginning of the session. You might have joined in a little bit later, but hidden text, such as the white color text that we've seen before, we definitely do detect that. So nanti when you get the recording, maybe you want to refer back to the earlier part of today's presentation, but we do have that too. Otherwise, you can also type it in this help guide and search for answers yourself if you don't want to search with a 2-hour session that we have for that particular section. Should we exclude all the author's name and their affiliations because this can also be detected by Turnitin or Turnitin have features not to detect them? So if you are matching the author's name and their affiliations, what you've seen before, you can apply exclusions to them too if you want. I think that's up to you on your judgment whether or not you want to exclude it from the start or not. So maybe that's something you need to refer to your own policy or maybe come up with your own practice to do that. Okay, Dr. Al-Hatib mentions why the interface looks different on my side. You may need to refer back to your Turnitin administrator because when I checked, this is the new interface that I believe is the default for most of you. So you may want to just check if the interface is, especially for assignment yang baru punya, whether it is updated. So if you're still having issues with that, first check with your Turnitin admin. And if not, then let us know and we can see if we can investigate your account for you. Can you please repeat the part about the references? Okay, so for the references, you asked before whether there is a risk. As far as I know, there is not really a risk in general. But like I said, it depends on the format of your paper or the format you're getting your students to write in. In another university, I had a university whose students require them to insert the reference list in the middle of their paper. So biasanya reference list is at the hujung punya kertas, but in this case, the students would insert it in the middle of the document. If you select yes, exclude references, and if it's in the middle of the document, you are at risk of not analyzing the rest of the document. And the reason for that is because of how it works. So here in this page that I'm showing you, this is explaining to you how our reference exclusion works. It's that when you say, yes, let's exclude references, it means that we are checking your entire document for any of these words, and we're using it as the starting point to start excluding any text. If there is no ending text that kind of tells the system to stop excluding the text, then we will just keep continuing on and excluding anything after any of these words are being started. So if you are someone that has included references in the middle of the page and want those references to be excluded, what you will need to do is to ensure that there is a terminating phrase to ensure that these checks are going to stop exclusions at that point. So hopefully that answers your question. But if you run into any issues with the exclusions, feel free to let us know and we can also perhaps explain it to you in more detail for that personal issue that you might have. Thank you. Thank you, Asma. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Hopefully this session is helping you too. If similarity, okay, sorry, that was more comments. Been doing it out of necessity. Happy to know that it's correct and not simply manipulating. Okay, good to know. Is there similar training for our students? For Turnitin side, at this stage, we don't have any trainings provided to students. From our side, students just simply need to upload the reports to the submission. But if you want them to learn more about how the report is being read, because like I said, common misconception like they always think that it's a plagiarism score, so they get very worried. I mean, I was a student as well, so I was also thinking that way. So there are a lot of resources available on the guide specifically for that too. There's even a student hub specifically for students. They might not know this, but they can also have a report here that tells them how to understand the score. So you can also help educate them too. But for Turnitin Inside, we don't have a training session for them because students, they don't have a lot of access to these features. They just need to know how to understand the report and the grades and feedback you've given them. So that's why we don't run those trainings for them. Mine is also different. Is it because we don't have Turnitin AI? No. So whether or not you have AI, you should have this updated screen. If you don't have it, you might need to check with your administrator. And I'm going to explain that to you. It's because there are two different views. So last July, we have recently released this view, which is the latest view. But for those of you that are on the older version, it may look something like this, I think. So I assume that you are looking something like this gun. So this is the older view. And so there are two things that I think I want you to check here is one, when you're saying your view is different, is it on older assignments or is it on new assignments you have recently received? If it's on older assignments, then it won't change. But if it's on a newer one, then you might need to contact your Turnitin administrator and check if the new view is enabled on your account or not. Okay, so that's what you need to check. But if you see like this little sign here that says go to beta view, that is another way for you to kind of switch it. But that's not exactly the correct way to do this. So if you want to get to the root of the problem or the root of this, I recommend that you go and ask your administrator for assistance. Okay. When it comes to percentage similarity report, does the number of matches found is still considerably as no plagiarism element, or is it subject to instructor's plagiarism? Similarity and plagiarism are two distinguished elements. So yes, to answer your question, it is subject to instructor's discretion. Similarity and plagiarism are indeed two distinguished elements. So let's say you are writing a research paper. For a research paper, you expect students to use outside research as part of their argument or evidence as well, right? So when they're using outside works, that's when similarity matches will occur. But in order for us to detect whether or not plagiarism has happened, we need to check for references. Because again, plagiarism is when the students would try to pass off someone else's work as their own. So that's why you need to review the similarity matches and check if they have quoted it properly, if they have properly referenced it. So they are indeed separate things. So that's where you need to check. Turnitin detects the words listed when used as subheading or if they are randomly in text. Example references. If you're talking about in terms of similarity, yes. So any small matches can also be detected as references.
Miss Cynthia,
Yeah.
actually the question was, remember that list that you said that Turnitin will spot the reference list reference,
Yeah.
all those things. If for example it detects that word, then it will stop analyzing beyond that, right? You said.
Yeah. Yeah.
So does this apply? I mean, does the stop feature apply only when those words that you listed are obviously a subheading, or like if, for example, we use the words in our text, then it will trigger that same response?
So from my understanding, it's any point in the text, it would trigger the same response.
I see. So we do have to be careful of using those words, is it? in
Yeah,
case.
so that's why I would usually recommend. So it's still a good way to just check the work anyway, even if you apply references. But technically how it works is that whether it's a heading or whether it's in between a long sentence, as long as we find it, then we will stop the check for that.
Because sometimes we do use the words like in sentence. So
Okay. Yeah, but that's why I guess that's also another risk of it lah, like if you are applying the exclusions to the references. So that's why it's also good to like do a quick check first, whether you apply or don't apply. Just review the report and review it entirely. If you see like it's not being detected after a certain point, maybe you want to turn off the references so that way you can proceed with the whole paper checking first.
okay, thank you.
Okay. Is it equal when a student uses plagiarism or AI writing? I mean, in evaluation process. Okay, so I'll answer that shortly. Okay, so we are a little bit over time, but let me just answer the AI writing report since we are already here. AI writing over here, let me move on to a different paper over here. This is the student's AI writing report. And just to give you an introduction, because I know you don't have access to this is currently not part of IIUM punya subscription. But how it works is that any text we have detected in high confidence as being written by AI will be highlighted in blue. So these are straight from an AI output. And those highlighted in purple are those that have been AI generated. And then the students will try to ubah it and try to change it by putting it through an AI paraphrasing tool. So that's why it's highlighted in purple. So for this one, it is not equal when a student uses plagiarism or AI writing. So there are two different elements of behavior. And I think it also just depends on in terms of institution-wise, what you allow and what you don't allow. So some universities have started to allow the use of AI in part of the coursework. In what capacity? It depends. So some institutes would say you can use AI to maybe help you with your structuring of your essay or your, structuring of ideas on what to come up or what to write about. So the extent of it is going to be different depending on university policies, but that is different to what plagiarism is. So they are indeed two different things. And one thing I will show you perhaps is if you're interested to learn more about what the differences between the similarity score, which detects similarity, and what the AI score is, I will point you to this resource. So let me show you the resource over here specifically. It is this one over here. So maybe this will give you better insights to the difference. But this infographic tells you the difference between the similarity score and the AI writing indicator. So I'm just going to link this in the chat for you. And hopefully that helps you understand that a lot better too. Can it detect the difference between generative AI and those using it with language and flow? So that one is an interesting question, and that's also very common within our regions. But sometimes if English is not our main language, we do need AI to come and help, I guess, correct it or improve our grammar. So in this stage, what I would say that Turnitin is going to flag it as AI if the AI is rewriting the sentence for the students. If it's minor changes to the language and grammar that the AI is helping the students with, we will not detect it. So we will only detect it based on the level of severity of AI involvement. So if the AI tool is completely rewriting the language, restructuring it entirely for the students, then we will flag it as AI generated content. All right. Okay. So for now, since I'm hoping there's going to be more questions after this, but I'm still not done, unfortunately. We're going to close the session out really quickly. As a reminder, these are the 3 steps you need to do in order to get started. Create a class, add students, and add assignment. If you need a reminder on how to submit a paper by yourself, if you're just checking your own research paper, remember you will need to still add yourself as a student and upload on behalf of yourself, aka the student. More information on how to do this can be found in the guides, which I have linked in the chat. As a workflow recap, just remember to check integrity flags so that rules out any suspicious behavior. If you have the AI score, then you can check AI score next, but then you would then need to check for similarity matches and apply grading and feedback where appropriate. If you are ever concerned, just remember to consider if it's a skills-based issue, because that's something you can help improve your students' skills with, whether it's referencing skills, paraphrasing skills, or things like that. You can certainly help them. Or if it's an academic integrity issue, think about who else at IIUM you can talk to, maybe come up with education workshops, policies, or things like that. If you need additional help and support, I've already shared with you the guides. It's going to be your next best reference. So go and search for any of the questions you might have after this in that place. If you can't find your answer, feel free to contact your institution's administrator. Perhaps they can help you. Otherwise, reach out to us at this email address if you need to. As a reminder, this is being recorded, so I think it will be sent to you. And I will also attach the slides to send to your admin so they can forward it on to the rest of you too. Finally, if you have the time and if you enjoyed the session and learned a lot about it, or even if you don't like it, I would highly appreciate it if you could fill out this survey to let me know if you enjoyed the content, if there's something else you would like to have seen more about, or if there's something about my presentation style you think I can improve on. I would really appreciate it if you could help me complete this survey. If you do not have your device with you to scan the QR code, I will drop the link in the chat, so I would appreciate it if you could do that. And then if you have any other questions, let me know. I will stay on for the next few minutes if you have something else you want to discuss. And I can see a lot of you are logging off, so thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for joining me today. Hopefully this was very beneficial to you as well.
Thank you, Miss Cynthia. This is very beneficial.
Thank you. Really happy to hear that. Okay. Sorry, I missed some point. When we want to turn in our own work, do we need different email? No, no, Emilia, you can also just add your own email as a student. So I'll go back to it again. So I'll just show you. At the top, you can just add yourself as a student. As you can see, I've added my own self. So you can just add yourself as a student. All right, no worries. Okay, I can see a whole bunch of people are logging off, which is great. So I'll give you back the rest of your day. If you have any other questions after this, you know where to look for answers and you know how to contact us for further questions too. So in this case, I'm just gonna log off here if that's okay.
Yes, Miss Cynthia.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thanks,
All right.
Amira. Thanks, Fariha.
All
Okay, thank
right.
you, everyone.